Hello, and welcome back, scholars. This week, we will be discussing personal money management. For a brief overview of the topics we will discuss, first, we will talk about income. Personal money management begins with income. We'll also discuss savings and why it's important to put aside a portion of earned income for future purchases. We'll also discuss what a budget is, and it's a plan for expected earned income and expected expenses. We'll also discuss that when consumers borrow money from the bank, they take on debt that must be paid back along with interest. And lastly, we'll discuss why responsible money management involves budgeting, saving, goal setting, and making wise decisions about debt. So first, let's discuss what income and expenses are. Income is any form of payment you receive for doing work. It may also come from gifts or from selling things. You have what is called your net income, and that's the total amount of money that a worker takes home after taxes are withheld. So once you, ladies and gentlemen, begin to go out into the workforce, you will notice on a pay stub that you will have your gross earnings, which is all of the money you make before taxes are taken out, and then your net income is what you actually walk away earning. In order to manage money effectively, your income should always be higher than your expenses. So that's why we have the scales over here to remind you that income should always be greater than your outcome or your outflow, your expenses. And an expense is the cost of something purchased. So remember, you always want to be in the green and not in the red. One way to accomplish that task is to create a budget for your household. A budget is a plan for spending and saving income. The main reason people keep a budget is to track how much money they have available to spend and to save. Below are the benefits of a budget. A budget allows you to plan your expenses. Also, it can help control wasteful and impulsive spending. Budgets also maintain control of personal finances, and having a budget allows for you to plan for both long-term and short-term goals. Creating a budget. The basic rule to remember again is that income must always be higher than expenses. And once a budget is set up, there might need to be adjustments made to the budget, and that's okay, just as long as you're keeping track and have your goal. So in order to set up a budget, you have to estimate the amount of income expected each month. Also, you have to estimate the expenses expected each month. So you have to determine what your bills might cost and any subscriptions that you might have. You also want to consider what short-term or long-term goals you have when you decide how much money you'd like to save. And then at the end of a month, you go back and you balance your budget by comparing the amount of income to the amount of expenses. So if you notice that you were spending extra money in a certain area, you might decide that you need to adjust the number of times you make those purchases or to cut them out altogether. Or you might look to an alternative that would save you money. But again, once a budget is created, there is room for adjustment, but you must keep your end goal in mind. These are a couple of examples to show you what a budget might look for. On the left, you'll see a teen budget worksheet. I found this on familyeducation.com, and this could be something that you could look up and print out if you wanted to start working on a budget for yourself. Here is just a quick look at a budget for Alex's 4-week budget. So Alex babysits and runs errands and earns $80 a month. So as you can see, Alex puts away some money for college, for snacks, gotta have those snacks, saving for a computer, so that would be a goal in mind as well as college, and then there's money set aside for entertainment and clothes. And if you notice over here, your income is always what you add, and your expenses are what you subtract or debit from your available amount. So at the end of the month, Alex had $10 remaining to carry over into the next month. That would be saving. So if Alex carried that $10 over, then Alex would already have $10 to add any other additional income to. And saving money allows people to plan for future purchases. It can grow over time and can be used in the case of an emergency. By saving money in a bank or savings institution, money can earn interest. And interest is a charge that the bank pays the account holder for the use of their money. Now, if you walked into a bank at any time and wanted to withdraw your money, you could. But while your money is there, the bank is going to use your money and it loans to other holders. And then when those other holders repay with interest, your money goes back into your account and the interest goes to the bank. Interest amounts can range anywhere from 0.5% up to 14%. It all depends on the saving account you set up with your bank. Also, interest rates at banks are based on something called the prime lending rate, which is set up by the Federal Reserve Bank. And the Federal Reserve, often called the Fed, is the bank for the United States. So when unemployment becomes high or the economy needs to be stimulated, the Fed is going to lower the prime rates. By doing that, when the rates either go up on your interest earnings or when the Fed lowers the prime rates, that means that people can go and take out loans at a lower interest rate, and that helps put money back into the economy. And that's why the Fed will take notice. And you might hear on the news that the Fed is expected to drop or raise the interest rate. Credit and debt. Credit is something you need to be very responsible with. If you don't hear anything else that you have ever learned in your life, you need to understand how serious credit is and debt. So credit is an arrangement for deferred payment of a loan or purchase. Let me say that a little easier. Credit allows you to take something now that you want now and you pay later for the item, but you do so with interest added. So debt is the sum of the money that is owed. So debt includes the amount you borrowed plus the interest that accrues on the loan. It is important to borrow money only when it's absolutely necessary and to pay back borrowed money as soon as possible. If you look here on the right, this shows you how much interest can accrue over a period of time if you are not able to pay off a balance. Now, 10% is pretty low. A lot of loans, especially credit cards, are going to be at a much higher interest rate, typically starting out around 18 or 19% interest. But if you look here, if a person borrowed $100 in January, and if they only paid minimum amounts, each month 10% would be added to what they owed. So by August, that person, their initial purchase was only $100. Now they've had to pay back an extra $33 in taxes. In interest. So the interest can add up over time. That's why it is important for you to be smart about using credit and going into debt. Credit card debt. First, I want to make sure that you understand the difference between a credit card and a debit card. A credit card is when you don't have the money to purchase something, but you either want or need it at that point and are willing to pay it off later. When you use a debit card, that is just like taking money from your bank. So if you make a debit purchase, that means you are paying for something in cash and it is done. You won't owe any interest, you've paid the exact price, and you keep it moving. You are not in debt. So that's the difference between using a credit card or a debit card. So one of the most common reasons for the use of credit cards is when a consumer or a purchaser finds themselves in a position where their expenses are higher than their income. So it might seem in the short term like a good idea to use credit cards, but it can cause problems in the long term. Again, interest on most credit cards is around 19%, and depending on your credit score, your rates could be higher. And the interest rates can fluctuate. They can go up and down when the Fed adjusts those prime lending rates. So again, using a credit card might seem like a good idea in the short term, but sometimes things can happen and you think, oh, well, next month I'll be able to give this much money back. And then you might have another incident occur and you've got to borrow more money, and it can just start adding up and adding. So let's talk about Charlie. Charlie makes a $2,000 purchase on their Visa card. With an interest rate of 19%, they will accrue $400 in interest charges. Every month they do not pay off the balance, another 19% of the total balance will be added to the total amount. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called compounding interest. So being responsible is key here. The key to responsible personal finance is never borrow more money than you can repay in a reasonable amount of time. Borrowers must understand that there is an associated risk with debt. Poor debt management can lead to other financial problems, such as bankruptcy or difficulty receiving credit in the future. Learning to control and understand personal finance is an important task for everyone to learn. That is all regarding personal finance that I have to discuss with you today. Again, please remember, if you don't listen to anything else, be responsible with your credit. It's very easy for your credit to sue, but it's much harder to bring it back up. So ladies and gentlemen, be smart with your money, be responsible, start learning how to budget and save now, because I'm telling you, it's a skill. I wish I could go back in time and do much better at a much younger age for myself. All right, folks, this is Miss Rauscher, and I am signing out.